So, what was that paper about? Well, one of the ideas, and the one they pick up that they like, is that a pattern in a data set is real whenever it has a description more compressed than the bitmap of that pattern. And the idea is just to distinguish a real pattern from utter randomness in the sense. And that's following very much shape, of course. Now, that is extremely lenient, as they point out. There's lots of things that are patterns. And that is, in any data set, there's lots of patterns. There's not just one. I mean, if there's any pattern, there's probably lots of patterns. But particularly interested me is imperfect patterns, where we had a description of a data set which mapped only sort of well onto that data set, and where there was a lot of noise. So you just acknowledge, this is a pattern. My pattern is there, but with 10% noise, or with 5% noise, or with 20% noise. If it's there with 50% noise, then it isn't right. But sometimes it seems to me we want to tolerate cases where we have a very complicated phenomenon. We have a pattern that fits sort of well, useful enough to make predictions, and we say, I want to say, that's a real pattern. That's a real pattern. And that's as real as reality gets. Some patterns, I don't know, I don't think I want to say some patterns are realer than others, but maybe, I don't think so. So if I find a more informative pattern in the data than you, your pattern is still a real pattern, and there are lots of them. That's the point that Don and James, as I understand, and want to they want to jettison that leniency of mine and go for. They want to make these questions not diplomatic questions, but questions of naturalized metaphysics that have answers that are systematically defensible, and not just as diplomacy. That, I take it, is the sort of main point of difference between us at this point. So in Everything Must Go, they take real patterns and they beef them up by saying, I provided a nice necessary condition for reality, but I haven't provided a sufficient condition, which is what they want. And the pattern for them isn't really real unless it's not redundant, in the sense in which that pattern is redundant. When my friend's pattern, when I've got a better one, their pattern is, you can use it as a sort of cheap façon de parler, but it's not a real pattern in the data because of the errors that it tolerates. Now this maybe I don't understand them, because I find this a very stringent requirement, which just seems to me to be much too strong. I'm going to try to say why. So what they put forward what they call rainforest realism, which is, I like the term a lot. It suggests that there's a lot more in the ontology than you might have thought. This is not Quine's desert landscape. There's a way of sort of repopulating our ontology once we've gotten rid of the false dream of getting it all down to what they wonderfully call A-level chemistry. By the way, speaking of A-level chemistry, that's their term of abuse for actual David Lewis style imaginary science, where it's just a lot of little sort of Humean billiard balls, little ultimate particles bouncing off each other. Here's another term you can add to your vocabulary. Graham Cairns Smith, the chemist actually, who is famous for his genetic takeover argument about the possibility of the silicon-based life form being the structure on which the protein life came later, carbon-based life. And in a later book on the mind and consciousness, which has some virtues and also some vices, he talked about when he was a little kid at school in Scotland, and the teacher asked what electricity was made of. And one of the kids raised his hand, oh, I know. What? He said, it's wee sandy stuff. Wee sandy stuff has been my private term for that view ever since. That's what the world is made of, is me saying stuff. So rainforest realism seems to me to abandon all the graves of the sort of non-stringency that I am, for the time being, at least holding out for, which means I probably just don't understand their position. That's why I'm looking forward to hearing how they will respond to this. One of the passages in this book uses my discussion of the intentional stances applied on the one hand to a thermostat, on the other hand to a chess-playing computer. I put these on a sliding scale and say that the use of the intentional stance to understand what's going on in the chess-playing computer is well nigh obligatory. It is such a stunningly more efficient and compact and projectable approach than using just tracing the electrons through the computer or using the design stance and looking at it, the program. And here's what they say. They say, well, the thermostat, that's really, well, if you treat the thermostat as a little agent with beliefs and desires, that's really optional. By contrast, where the artificial chess player is concerned, failure to reference its structured dispositions to the reasons furnished by its problem space, chess, will cause one to miss some true counterfactual generalizations about its behavioral tendencies. This, I take it, is an instance of why they say that the chess level is a non-redundant pattern in its behavior, and that's what makes it a real level. Well, except that I don't agree with their boss on the example. I don't think it is non-redundant. I think it's just much, much more efficient than the program level, which is actually the better pattern in the chess program. Because at the program level, you will predict not only the rational moves by the chess player, but also the sub-rational moves where the program is only an approximation of course, of ideal chess. Now, in order to put this in a little wider context, I think it belongs there, but maybe this is just my egocentricity showing something. I want to put it in the context of what I've been recently arguing this year about Darwin and evolution and about Turing. Here's my favorite ever passage describing Darwin from Robert Beverly Mackenzie. In the theory with which we have to deal, absolute ignorance. I love the AI there. Is the art of perception. So that we may enunciate as the fundamental principle of the whole system that in order to make a perfect and beautiful machine, it is not requisite to know how to make it. This proposition will be found on careful examination to express in condensed form the essential purport of the theory, and to express in a few words all Mr. Darwin's meaning, who, by a strange inversion of reasoning, seems to think absolute ignorance fully qualified to take the place of absolute wisdom in all the achievements of creative skill. Bingo, he's got it. That's it. That's exactly right. That is what Darwin's theory says, and it is a strange inversion of reasoning. That's why creationists and intelligent design people have so much trouble with it. Now, I want to show the lovely parallel between that and Turing's strange